There comes a moment after heartbreak where you're not just hurting, you're questioning everything. Was it something I did? Was I not enough? Could I have made him stay? And while you're busy replaying the relationship like a movie you can't stop watching, he's out there, moving on, assuming you'll be stuck, shattered, and still waiting. But here's the truth no one tells you. When he breaks your heart, you don't cry harder, you rise higher. You don't beg him back. You let him feel your absence. You don't chase after closure, you become the closure. Because the greatest response to someone who took you for granted isn't revenge, it's reinvention. This isn't about getting even. This is about showing up for yourself in a way that makes his ego realize exactly what it lost and making sure you never forget what you gained. When a man breaks your heart, the first thing that often happens is you look inward and try to make sense of it. You replay every conversation, every moment, asking yourself what you missed, what you should have done differently, or worse. What's wrong with you? And in that emotional chaos, you might find yourself wanting one thing more than anything else: to fix it, to go back, to somehow rewrite the ending by convincing him to come back, to remember what you had, to love you again. But that desire, that desperate pull to win him back, that's not love. That's your self-worth trying to find footing in someone who already showed you he couldn't hold it. This is the moment that defines you, not when he loved you, not even when he left you, but what you do after he breaks your heart. Because the most dangerous thing you can do is make him the solution to the pain he caused. You don't heal by chasing the person who cut you. You heal by turning around and walking toward the version of yourself that doesn't need to be chosen to feel valuable. When someone walks away from you, especially someone you gave your time, your energy, your vulnerability to, it's natural to want to feel seen again. But here's what you need to remember. His validation isn't proof of your worth. Your worth was never supposed to be borrowed from his approval in the first place. You didn't lose value when he walked out. You didn't become less. What you lost was an illusion that someone who couldn't see your depth was ever capable of loving you at the level you deserved. Trying to win him back only reinforces the lie that your healing depends on him. And if he's the kind of man who walks away knowing how deeply you loved him and doesn't come back, then you chasing him just feeds his ego. It tells him he was right to think you'd still be there. It tells him he can hurt you and still have access to your heart. That's not love. That's emotional power. And every time you reach out, every time you post something meant to get his attention, every time you check if he's watching your story or liking your photos, you're feeding the very ego that decided you were replaceable. So here's the shift you make. You stop trying to win him back and you start reclaiming yourself. The pieces of you that you gave away so easily because you thought loving hard meant losing yourself in someone else. The standards you lowered to accommodate his inconsistency. The energy you poured into understanding someone who didn't put in half the effort to understand you. Reclaim all of it. That's how you start to break his ego. Not by attacking, not by proving anything to him, but by removing his power over your emotions entirely. Imagine the version of you that doesn't just get through this pain, but transformed because of it. The version that looks in the mirror and doesn't see what he didn't want, but sees everything he couldn't handle. That woman doesn't beg, doesn't explain, doesn't wait. She reinvents, she upgrades, she moves like someone who knows that being left isn't the same as being unworthy, and nothing shatters a fragile ego more than realizing the woman he thought would crumble in his absence didn't just survive, she became unavailable to everything that once broke her. You're not here to chase someone who doesn't see you. You're here to become so grounded in your worth that you never have to convince anyone of it again. So stop asking how to get him back. Start asking how to get you back. Because when he broke your heart, he might have thought he ended the story, but the truth is that was just your beginning. And the most powerful plot twist you can give him is becoming the version of you who no longer needs him at all. Silence is one of the most misunderstood responses after heartbreak. People often mistake it for weakness or avoidance, when in truth, silence, intentional silence, is a declaration of power. When someone breaks your heart, the temptation is to scream your pain, demand answers, send that long emotional message explaining how much they hurt you. You want to be heard, to be understood, to matter. But when you go silent, truly silent, not to manipulate, not to punish, but to protect your energy, you do something far more powerful than words ever could. The person who left expects a reaction. Whether they admit it or not, they're curious. Is she okay without me? Will she reach out? Is she still thinking about me? And they may not ask these questions out loud, but they feel them. And when your response is nothing, no text, no call, no emotional outburst, you disrupt the script they had in their head. You remove the comfort of knowing you're still there, hurting but attached, wounded but waiting. Your silence becomes the mirror they didn't expect to face. There's a particular kind of ego that thrives on the idea that someone still wants them even after they've hurt that person. It's not always malicious, sometimes it's just immaturity or insecurity, but it shows up when someone assumes they can exit your life and still live rent-free in your mind. They expect to be the ghost that lingers, the person you can't stop thinking about. But when you go quiet, you take that expectation and crush it under the weight of your self-respect. You don't need to prove that you are hurt. You don't need to explain why you deserved better. The act of not speaking says it all. Because silence is not the absence of feeling, it's the presence of control. It's you choosing peace over performance. It's you refusing to hand over any more of your energy to someone who already decided they could live without it. And while they may pretend not to notice, trust me, they notice. When you don't react, they start to wonder. That wondering becomes thinking. That thinking leads to doubt. Did she move on already? Was I not as important as I thought? That's when the ego starts to crack, because the person who thought you would collapse in their absence starts to feel the weight of yours. And here's the beautiful part. You're not doing it to get a reaction. You're doing it because you finally see your value. You realize you don't need to fill the silence with pleas, explanations, or justifications. You let the quiet speak for you. And in that quiet, your strength echoes louder than any words could. Every time you resist the urge to reach out, to check in, to give in, you reclaim part of yourself. Every time you choose not to explain yourself to someone who didn't care enough to stay, you solidify your own worth. Silence becomes your boundary, your protection. your declaration, you no longer have access to me. It doesn't mean you're over it. It doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care more about your healing than his comfort. And yes, silence can be uncomfortable. It forces you to sit with your own pain instead of outsourcing it for validation. It asks you to be the one who carries your own closure, even when you deserved better. But it also gives you clarity, because when you're not wrapped up in the chaos of communication, you start to see the situation for what it really was. You stop romanticizing someone who was inconsistent. You stop craving someone who couldn't show up for you. You see through the illusion, and that sight alone is a form of healing. The truth is, silence is not empty. It's full of decisions, full of growth, full of self-respect. And for someone who broke your heart and expected to remain important in your life, nothing shakes their ego more than realizing they've been met with complete stillness. No chaos, no fight, no tears on the doorstep. Just space, just absence, just you, moving on quietly, gracefully, powerfully. So the next time you're tempted to break your silence just to remind him you still exist, pause and remember this. You don't need to remind anyone of your value. The right people never forget it, and the wrong ones, let your silence remind them of what they lost loudly. There's a moment after heartbreak when everything in you wants to scream. You want to shout about the unfairness, the lies, the betrayal. You want to lash out, to show him how much he hurt you, to make him feel even a fraction of the pain you're carrying. That impulse is real. It's raw. It comes from a place of deep emotion. But here's the truth you don't hear enough. Lashing out gives him your power. Leveling up takes it back. Revenge is easy. Anyone can send a spiteful text, post a cryptic story, or try to make him jealous with someone new. But that doesn't change anything. It doesn't heal the part of you that still feels abandoned. It doesn't build you into someone stronger. It just shows him that he still controls your emotions, that he still has a grip on your heart. And that's exactly what a fragile ego wants, to know it still matters even after causing destruction. What bruises that ego? Your growth, your glow, your ability to rise without him. When you stop focusing on how to make him feel bad and instead focus on how to make yourself feel better, not just temporarily, but deeply, you begin to shift everything. You stop performing pain and start building power. You stop proving and start transforming. That transformation is the loudest message you could ever send, not to him, but to yourself. Because the truth is, he didn't break you. He exposed the parts of you that needed healing. And now that you see them, you get to rebuild them. Not in his shadow, but in your own light. Leveling up doesn't mean pretending you're fine. It means using your pain as fuel to become someone who no longer begs for love that should have been freely given. You start investing in yourself, not because you want him to see what he lost, but because you finally see what you almost forgot: your worth, your magic, your power. You stop scrolling through his life and start building your own. You step back from asking, why didn't he love me enough? And start asking, why did I settle for less than I deserve? And here's the irony. When you focus on becoming stronger, happier, more fulfilled, that's when he starts to notice. Not because you tried to get his attention, but because you stopped needing it. He may come back with a message, a like, a just checking in. That's the ego reacting, but your job isn't to entertain it. Your job is to remember what it felt like to cry over someone who didn't show up when you needed him. Your job is to honor the version of you that stayed loyal to someone who wasn't loyal to her. This kind of growth doesn't just happen on the outside. Sure, it's great if you start working out, dressing up, hitting your goals, but the real glow up is emotional. It's when you stop attaching your value to how someone treats you. It's when you stop replaying old conversations and start rewriting your inner dialogue. It's when you stop asking for closure and start becoming your own. That's the kind of transformation that doesn't just change your life, it protects it from being broken in the same way again. When you evolve, you don't need revenge. You don't need explanations. You don't even need acknowledgement, because you're no longer living in response to someone who couldn't love you right. You're living in alignment with the love you're finally giving yourself. That's how you break his ego. Not by throwing your pain at him, but by refusing to make him the center of your story anymore. Let him watch you become someone unrecognizable to the girl who once cried over his inconsistency. Let him sit in the silence of your growth while you fill your life with new dreams, new joy, new peace. The woman who levels up doesn't chase closure. She is the closure. She doesn't fight to be seen. She becomes so radiant she can't be ignored. She doesn't seek validation. She walks into every room knowing she brings value. So don't waste your time trying to get even. Get better. Let the best version of you be the answer to every question he'll one day ask himself. How did I let her go? And the truth is, he didn't let you go. You let yourself become someone he no longer gets to know. When someone breaks your heart, it's easy to take it personally. You start to question your own worth, replaying everything you did, wondering if it was something you said, something you lacked, something you could have done better. But here's the truth that will change how you see everything. He didn't reject you. He revealed himself. His actions weren't a measurement of your value. They were a reflection of his capacity. So many women fall into the trap of thinking that if a man walks away, it must mean they weren't enough. Not beautiful enough, not interesting enough, not lovable enough. But that mindset keeps you stuck in pain that was never yours to carry, because when someone chooses to leave, especially someone you gave your heart to, it says more about where they are emotionally than about what you're missing. It shows you the ceiling of their emotional maturity. It exposes the limits of their ability to commit, to show up, to be present. And that's information you need to stop chasing someone who was never built to stay. The moment you stop viewing his exit as rejection and start seeing it as a reveal, everything shifts. Instead of feeling like you've been discarded, you start to understand that you've been redirected. Instead of feeling like you lost, you realize you've been spared. Because if someone can walk away from the love you offered without trying to grow, without fighting to keep it, then they weren't aligned with the kind of love you deserve. When someone breaks your heart and walks away, it's easy to see the ending as proof that you weren't worth staying for. But love isn't about convincing someone to choose you. Love is about mutual respect, effort, and emotional availability. If you were the only one carrying the relationship, giving more, understanding more, forgiving more, then the relationship wasn't balanced to begin with. And someone who expects you to constantly shrink, wait, or hurt just to keep the peace isn't rejecting you because you're too much. They're revealing that they're not enough for the kind of love you offer. Let that sink in. His inability to commit, to be loyal, to grow, or to stay isn't about you being unworthy. It's about him being unequipped. And once someone reveals that, your job is not to fix them, explain yourself, or prove your love. Your job is to believe them. Because every time you excuse what they revealed, you teach yourself to ignore red flags. Every time you internalize their lack as your fault, you bury your self-worth under someone else's issues. So instead of spiraling into self-doubt, stand still for a moment and see it clearly. He didn't break your heart because you were unlovable. He broke your heart because he wasn't ready to meet your level of love. And if that sounds like a bitter pill to swallow, consider the alternative, staying stuck in a cycle where you constantly shrink yourself to fit into someone else's. That's not love, that's emotional survival. This heartbreak, as painful as it is, gave you something rare: clarity. It showed you who he really is, not who you hoped he would be. And that clarity is a gift. Because now you're free to stop building castles in the sand. You're free to stop fighting for a future with someone who only lived in your present on his terms. You're free to stop writing a story where you have to earn love that should be given without conditions. And here's what breaks his ego the most. Not that you cry, not that you beg, not that you keep showing him how much you care. What shakes him is when you finally see him for who he really is and walk away. When you stop needing him to understand your worth because you finally understand it yourself. That's when you become untouchable. That's when you rise. You didn't get rejected. You got released. And sometimes release is the highest form of protection. It may hurt now, but this heartbreak didn't destroy you. It revealed the strength you forgot you had. It reminded you that your love isn't a burden, it's a gift. A gift that someone will one day be grateful to receive. Someone who doesn't walk away from it, but leans into it. Someone who doesn't just see your value, they match it. So let him reveal himself. Let him walk. Let the heartbreak happen, but don't let it define you. Let it refine you. Let it sharpen your standards, deepen your self-love, and strengthen your boundaries. Because the person who couldn't handle your love isn't the person who gets to decide its value.